But Judas was the one that sold Jesus out. But the other disciples were evil. What? This is going to be a first for the channel. I haven't really talked about any sort of spirituality content at all before. I think I have mentioned my position on things before, but I'm going to reiterate them for this video. Basically, I'm an atheist. I think there was no reason that we exist. I think that we happen to just get lucky. The universe is so fucking broad. There are other life forms out there. We happen to be one of them, and it's so vast that we're probably not going to engage with them. I do not think that there was any sort of spiritual creature or being, entity, whatever, that created everything deliberately. There could be some kind of... All I know is there was a big bang, and we don't know what happened before then, but thinking that it was space ghosts is not really my cup of tea. So with that said, I'm going to be going over a video that's talking about the world's first Bible that apparently reveals that God is the devil. And oh yeah, that actually reminds me, I was actually raised Protestant Christian, and then I actually read the Bible and thought to myself, wow, this being that I'm told I'm supposed to love and loves me and is only a one-sided relationship where we talk. But then going on through the Bible, I realized, wow, this dude's racking up the kill count way higher than the person that's supposed to be the embodiment of evil. And then I moved away from Christianity, and then I was pretty agnostic for a while, until I came to the conclusion that essentially, well, I don't want to believe in stuff unless there's actual evidence of its existence. So if there's no actual thing I can point to that's definitive proof and not just a book from hundreds or thousands of years ago that actually demonstrates in modern day in repeatable ways of its influence, why would I believe in it? And that's where I sit today. Without further ado, let's get into it. I have no idea who this channel is. World's first Bible reveals God as the devil. Morgue official. 300 nice subscribers. Let's see if it's earned.
What if God is actually the devil? What if the very foundations of Christianity was built on a shocking secret that the church doesn't want you to know? Marcion, the man who compiled the world's first Bible, believed that the God worshipped by the church today is actually an evil being that's enslaving humanity, and will also discover that Jesus himself reveals that God...
Wait, so the religion that's founded on love me or burn in hell forever is trying to manipulate and enslave people? I totally never came to that conclusion.
God is the devil in the banned Gospel of Judas. Is this actually true, and has the world been deceived into worshiping an evil being? We're gonna find out right now. First, make sure you like and subscribe, as I'll be releasing more hidden knowledge on my channel that you won't find anywhere else. And if you ever felt like that you've learned something from my work, support on Patreon to get access to weekly secret videos, and you can also support by hitting the join button right below this video. Before we discover the dark truth about God that Jesus reveals in the banned Gospel of Judas, we have to know something about Marcion and the world's first Bible. So who was Marcion? Marcion was a Christian theologian who lived...
FYI, I have no idea who the fuck this Marcion is, so I'm learning too. I'm just sharing my perspective as an ex-Christian. As a recovering.
Lived in the 2nd century. He was the son of a bishop and was deeply involved in the early Christian church. But as he studied the scriptures, he began to have doubts about the God he had been taught to worship. Marcion came to believe that the God described in scripture was not the loving, merciful God that Jesus spoke of. Instead,
You mean the guy that drowned the entire world and then saved one drunkard that built a boat for him was not a good God? Huh.
Instead, he believed that the creator God was actually an evil deity who sought to keep humanity in bondage. And you can't blame him, because think about it. God is described as drowning the entire world except for Noah and his...
How does she know? How does she know?
family, killing the firstborn children of Egypt, and accepting a burnt virgin sacrifice, among a lot of other things. Now, does that sound like a loving God to you? Of course not. That kind of behavior is the exact...
There's actually a lot more than that. Like, don't forget about the Cain and Abel story. You got, or not, no, not the Cain and Abel story. Shit. What was that dude's name? Where God told him to bring his son up on top of the mountain to sacrifice. And then when he was actually about to do it, God was like, no, dude, don't actually do it. I was just testing to see if you love me. What was that story called? I forget.
Opposite of what Jesus teaches, like love thy neighbor as thyself. So Marcion concluded that the creator God was actually an evil entity who ruled the world with judgment and violence.
And remember that Jesus is also God at the same time. So it's a do as I say, not as I do stuff.
Kept humanity in a state of submission and slavery. But in contrast, Marcion saw Jesus as a messenger from a completely different God, a higher God who provided an escape from the cruel world created by the evil creator God.
I'm gonna need some crack for this one.
And at the end of this video, we will see exactly who that higher God is. Historian Bart D.
Anybody want to take guesses on what it is? Oh, what if it's Satan? That'd be a twist.
Ehrman said, according to Marcion, Jesus came from a different God, a previously unknown God, who was not the God of the Old Testament, but a higher spiritual being who intervened on behalf of people to save them from the wrath of the Creator. So who is this higher God exactly? We're going to find out. But think about it. This idea might seem strange to us today, the fact that the Creator God is evil, but that's because the world has been conditioned throughout generations to believe that the Creator God is good. But the idea that the Creator God is evil was actually very compelling in early Christianity. Bart Ehrman said,
well, I just want to say I'm glad to know that I'm not the first person to come to that conclusion. I know I've heard of other stories of atheists that have come to the similar conclusion as mine, where we believed and then we actually read the Bible and like thought about the stories and what the God was doing. This feels like very basic knowledge for somebody that actually reads.
Marcion had a huge following. In some parts of the Christian world at the end of the 2nd century, there were apparently more Marcionites than other kinds of Christian. In Marcion's view, the world was a battleground between the evil creator God and the higher, loving God. Now, Marcion's followers, known as Marcionites, were pescatarians, and they embraced pacifism, and women held high leadership roles within the community, which was a practice that was very progressive for the time. Now, not only was
Wait, so it was a matriarchy? Based. Who wants to subscribe to this religion?
Marcion's version of Christianity extremely popular, but he actually compiled the world's first canon of the Bible. In an attempt to distance the evil creator God from Jesus and the higher God, Marcion compiled a collection of scriptures which became the first Christian canon. His canon, or Bible, had only 11 books in 2 parts: the Evangelicon, a shorter version of the Gospel of Luke,
Whoop, didn't mean to pause.
and the Apostolicon, 10 letters written by Paul the Apostle, that were also a bit shorter than the ones that we know today. Now think about it, the world's first Bible was actually created to support the idea that the creator God was evil and that Jesus was from a higher God. Marcionism spread fast.
I wonder what Marcionism... Did I pronounce that right? Yes, I did. I wonder what it says about the, all other gods are false. Like, isn't it the literal 10 commandments where, like, the first one is love me for I am God, and the second one is there are no other gods, and then the third one is, like, trust me bro, seriously, there are no other gods, it's only me?
Fast, and it had a big following. The Marcionites' commitment to pacifism and equality for women was ahead of its time, but as the Marcionite movement gained momentum, it also attracted the attention of the early Christian church. Church leaders like Tertullian and Irenaeus spoke out against Marcion and his teachings, labeling him a heretic. They argued that the ideas that Marcion preached were dangerous and misguided. Saint Polycarp met Marcion at Rome and is said to have called Marcion the firstborn of Satan. Irenaeus, in his work Against Heresies, writes, "Marcion declares God to be the author of evils and to take delight in war, but Jesus, being derived from that Father who is above the God that made the world, was manifested in the form of a man." Ultimately, the early Christian church declared Marcionism a heresy, and his followers were persecuted and forced to go underground, while Marcion's works were burned. But the truth is, there were actually many Christian movements and books that declared the creator of the world as evil and said that Jesus came from a higher God. In fact, Jesus says,
So it still got spread around anyways, despite the attempts. Still, I personally have... I take issue with how organized religion is today. Anyways, that, it, one way or another, it's all a form of control, trying to get you to conform to what they say God wants you to be like, but you just have their word for it, don't you? Have their word for it and your faith, and that's it.
Exactly this in the banned Gospel of Judas. Now, this long-lost gospel was discovered in the 1970s, and in the Gospel of Judas, Jesus reveals to Judas that the Creator God is indeed evil. Jesus teaches that he himself comes from a true higher God who is the source of all true knowledge, love, and goodness. Jesus said, "Come that I may teach you about secrets no person has ever seen, for there exists a great and boundless realm whose extent no generation of angels has seen, in which there is a great invisible spirit, which no eye of an angel has ever seen, no thought of the heart has ever comprehended, and it was never called by any name."
What? This is so fucking confusing. I hate religious stuff.
This quote from the Gospel of Judas emphasizes the existence of a higher, hidden God who is far removed from the cruel and vengeful Creator God. Now, another striking aspect of the Gospel of Judas is the portrayal of Jesus' disciples as evil and not understanding his teachings.
But Judas was the one that sold Jesus out. But the other disciples were evil. What?
The disciples are frequently depicted as struggling to grasp the profound and hidden truths that Jesus shares with them, and Jesus reveals that he is not from the God that the disciples worship, but from a different God entirely.
So then was Jesus's crucifixion the plot by the other disciples, and Judas was just thrown under the bus? Like, okay.
The Gospel of Judas says, "The disciples said to him, 'Master, why are you laughing at our prayer?' He answered and said to them, 'I'm not laughing at you. You're not doing this because you want to, because through this your God will be praised.' They said, 'Master, you are the Son of our God.' Jesus said to them, 'How do you know me? Truly, I say to you, no generation of the people among you will know me.'"
Okay, so then the version of the Bible that we all read, apparently, that Jesus said he was God, but everybody apparently misunderstood him for like thousands of years now, and even back then, because people are dumb.
When his disciples heard this, they started to get angry and furious and started to curse him in their hearts. But when Jesus noticed their ignorance, he said to them, "Why are you letting your anger trouble you? Has your God within you and his stars become angry with your souls?" Now notice that Jesus refers to the God they worship as your God and implies that they don't know about the God that he really comes from. While the other disciples are struggling to understand what Jesus is saying,
I hate religious topics. I hate it.
Judas is portrayed as having a deeper understanding of Jesus, and this special insight sets Judas apart from the other disciples. Judas said to him, "I know who you are and where you've come from. You've come from the immortal realm of Barbelo, and I'm not worthy to utter the name of the one who sent you." Then Jesus.
I am so confused. Why are they turning to this? Okay.
Knowing that he was thinking about what's exalted, said to him, "Come away from the others, and I'll tell you the mysteries of the kingdom." Here that we see that Jesus is implying that he's from another realm and another God entirely, a God completely different from the evil creator God. But the question is, could Marcion, the creator of the first Christian canon and banned books like the Gospel of Judas, be right? Is God actually the devil? The truth is actually much deeper than that, because
But do you have time in the next minute and a half to really get into the weeds of it? Because, like, I'm still hung up on the fact that Judas was the one that got Jesus killed.
the truth is that the evil creator God doesn't actually exist, but the idea of it has been used as a means to enslave humanity. The idea of a wrathful and vengeful creator God has been a potent and powerful tool for maintaining control over the masses, and by instilling fear into the hearts of humanity, religious institutions have been able to manipulate and direct the actions of their followers, often for their own gain. And this
FYI, this is not just a Christian thing. Have y'all ever heard of the Buddhist crusades? Or like, there have been people that have done massacres in the name of Buddha. Just throwing that out there.
fear-based control has been used to justify wars, persecutions, and countless atrocities throughout history. The Stoic philosopher Seneca the Younger said, "Religion is regarded by the common people as true, by the wise as false, and by the rulers as useful."
Yeah, so I don't know the full details on the Buddhist stuff, but I do remember, like, my partner had been in school at one point, and they were doing a religious studies course at the time, or like they were doing social studies, and it was talking about religion for that class, and there was a Buddhist student, and like it was being discussed in class of like all the different massacres and the names of religious stuff, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but basically it was yeah, people shouldn't, or the tone of the room became like people shouldn't use their religion, or shouldn't try to deny the atrocities committed in the name of their religion. And the Buddhist dude was like, yeah, there were people that did that in the name of Buddha, and they did bad. It's just mostly sensationalized around Islamic religions right now. Because, you know, the people in power want to hate brown people.
And religious institutions can easily use the idea of an angry and vengeful God to maintain power and control over their followers. If the idea of an evil creator God has been used to enslave humanity, what does this mean for our liberation? Well, by recognizing the manipulation and lies behind
Actually, no, let's see what you have to say.
these fear-based beliefs and religions, we can begin to break free from the chains of dogma and discover the truth that's already within us. The truth is that we are divine. Who is the higher God? We are that higher God. If you want to know more.
Okay, so in my opinion, he's taken a very, very roundabout way to get to my kind of conclusions, where we are the ones that created God. It's not a spiritual creature. It's people believing in superstitions and that being used to take advantage of them. That's kind of like how I see religion. It doesn't matter really which, but all religions exude some form of control over you. Whether or not people want to admit it, that's just the nature of religions, at least in my eyes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe for more content, and if you want to join the community, feel free to check out the Discord. I love to voice chat in there, so if you want to ever talk, I'm usually available. Well, in the afternoons.